you smell it, Arsenal fans? Can you taste it? Is it getting closer? Another emphatic win for the Gunners, Mikel Arteta's side, as Arsenal win 4-1 against managerless Crystal Palace. It was a very strong victory. Bukayo Saka with a brace, by the way. 10 goals, 10 assists. The first player to do that for Arsenal since Alexis Sanchez. So things are looking good. Luis Miguel Echegaray, welcome to ESPNFC YouTube Live. We want to answer all your questions and discuss this win and much, much more in the Premier League. Stevie Nicol is in the house. Stevie, Arsenal 4, Crystal Palace 1. Your initial reactions, my friend?
Same old, same old. You know, you can look at a couple of things in the game and say it might have changed it. Before Arsenal go ahead, Zaha hits the post. But the truth is, had Zaha scored, you still fancy Arsenal to just change gear and go on and win the game anyway. It was a comfortable win. It was a deserved win. And Arsenal right now, just in the Premier League, certainly, just keep the games coming and we'll just keep on winning, keep playing, keep passing it, keep moving, keep creating chances and scoring another 4 goals. So for Arsenal, same old, same old.
Same old, same old. And that's nothing but great news for Arsenal fans. As Stevie says, Arsenal just keep on rolling. That's 8 points at the top of the table now over Manchester City with a game extra played, of course, as Man City are in the FA Cup. And they took care of business in that tournament, of course, against Vincent Kompany's Burnley. But let's focus a little bit on some individual players here, Stevie. Let's go with Bukayo Saka, the man of the hour. I mentioned that he was the first player since Alexis Sanchez to score 10 goals and 10 assists in the Premier League. But here's some other stats for you, my friend. 29 career Premier League goals, tied with Raheem Sterling for the 10th most Premier League goals by a player before turning 22. Before turning 22, he passes Jermaine Defoe and Ryan Giggs for the 11th most by any player before turning 22 as well. I know that this squad is collectively fantastic. Ben White has been doing great as a right back, Stevie. In the middle, of course, Partey, Gabriel Jesus coming back. But Bukayo Saka, just how important is this man for the Gunners?
Well, he's a huge part of the cog. And the reason Arsenal are top of the league is because they have so many huge parts of the cog. But Saka in particular, I mean, you're talking about his age. The maturity of this kid is unbelievable. You know, football a lot of the time was about decision making, and that's why we talk about maturity and experience, because experience and maturity means that you make better decisions. Well, this guy, he doesn't make a mistake when it comes to making the decision. He passes it at the right time. He dribbles with it at the right time. You know, he'll try and finish at the right time. He's aware of what's going on around him, so that, in particular, if he's going to take a shot and he sees somebody in a better position, he has the composure and the wherewithal to understand that somebody's in a better spot. So this guy right now, well, I say right now, he's been doing it all season long, just keeps making good decisions, and then the finish as well. You know, the accuracy of everything he does, the passing, the shooting. I mean, really, to look and try and find a flaw would take less time than try to tell you how good he is, because right now there doesn't seem to be a flaw. That's the kind of form this guy's in. And as I started off saying, for Arsenal right now, they've got 3 or 4 that actually don't have too many flaws either.
And it's important to remember Bukayo Saka, he's gone through a lot in his young age, including the England national team, of course, in that Euro final against Italy. And he just keeps on going, mentally, physically, getting stronger and stronger. Fantastic stuff for the young international. Here's a question. I said, please send those questions. You're doing exactly that. Here's a question for you, Stevie Nicol. All right, so they lost to Sporting. They're out of the Europa League, but they beat Fulham. They beat Bournemouth, Everton, and now Crystal Palace. Of course, they haven't lost since February 15th in the Premier League, which that was to Manchester City, of course. The question is, are you shocked at how Arsenal have been pulling off these results?
No, absolutely not. You know, the question we all had just after the start of the season was, can Arsenal keep this going? Can Arsenal do what they're doing for the entire season? And so it would be a fool to turn around now and think that Arsenal are going to do nothing else other than play the type of football and create chances and hopefully score goals, because they're out the Europa League because they couldn't quite put the ball in the back of the net. They're not out the Europa League because they were beaten by a better side. At the end of the day, you have to take your chances. And so from the first kick of the season to now, Arsenal have been creating chances, and 9 times out of 10 have been taking those chances. So there is absolutely no reason to suggest that Arsenal are not, between now and the end of the season, going to keep doing what they're doing. And I would argue with anybody to come up with a reason why they won't. I talked about the game today. Yes, Zaha could have put Crystal Palace ahead, but having seen this Arsenal side for 7 months, you know the strength of character, the ability they have, they're so well drilled that it's almost robotic the way they play the game. But that would be harsh on them, because they have a little silky smooth way of passing and moving as well. So that doesn't really fit in with a robotic analogy. But as I said,
no, but I know what you mean though, Stevie, because they're a squad that collectively, it's like those fishes in the ocean. Just they all seamlessly just go in so well together, and every single person knows their role. There was a great moment in this game today when Ben White loses the ball. Xhaka's trying to win it back. There's a little bit of a contention in the top wing, left wing of the field. And then Ben White gets up because he knows his role. He knows somebody's going to be there to cover them. The goals themselves as well. So they do seem robotic, but they also have individual brilliance. It's pretty amazing. Here's another question for you, Stevie. It's kind of going off to your point about what you've already seen in the 7 or 8 months and stuff. It's clear, this fan says. It's clear. Title done and dusted, or, Stevie, or if Man City beat Arsenal, is it back on?
It's not done and dusted. The title race is still on. I'm just saying that right now, where Arsenal are, they're the team that have to, from nowhere, start doing things that they haven't done all season. Man City can go and win every single game, including the Arsenal game, between now and the end of the season, and still not win the league. Arsenal are absolutely in the driving seat. And there's, as I said before, there's nothing to suggest that Arsenal are not going to take advantage of that. So, yeah, I think that there's a title race on. If I'm Arsenal and I'm an Arsenal fan, I need to remember games like midweek against Sporting. As I said, there's no question who the best team was in my eyes. There's no question who created the most chances. The difference in the game was that Arsenal never took them. And so they have to be wary, and they have to remember that these things can happen on a football field. But as far as consistency, as far as the way they go about it, no question for me. Arsenal, yes, there's a title race on, but they big time are in the driving seat. And remember, as I said, even if they lose to City, they're still in the driving seat.
Yeah, they are still in the driving seat. Even though some of these players have only had their driver's license only for a few years, they're still in the driver's seat, of course. But very good question regarding the title race and what happens with City. Hey, guess what? Let's bring in Mark Ogden. Oggy is at the Emirates. He's just lived that 4-1 win as Arsenal defeated Crystal Palace. Oggy, welcome to the show, my friend. Give me your initial reactions from what you just witnessed at the stadium.
Well, I just thought right from the off that even though Zaha hit the post, I just didn't think Arsenal were ever going to lose today. And I think they've now won 6 on the spin after losing to Man City. I just feel that although they've had a couple of games in that run whereby they've had to score late, they're basically winning the games that people would genuinely think they're going to slip up. And, that in a title race, there's always a game where, or the odd run of games where even the champions will slip up. But Arsenal is picking the points. So 18 points from 18 after beating City. They're 8 points clear now. And I just felt that even with Saliba missing, Rob Holding comes in, didn't look fazed by who was playing against. It just looks a very, very comprehensive victory. And I think they've got 10 games to go now. And the games that you would, like I say, usually expect these teams to slip up in, they're just winning the game. So it does boil down to, I think it boils down to 2 games. City away, which is obviously huge, and then they've got to go to Anfield as well. And even though Liverpool are pretty unpredictable right now, Liverpool could easily win that game or lose that game. If I was Arsenal, I'd be worried about going to Anfield. But if they lose those 2 games, then City have to win everything. So I think that Arsenal are now the favourites to win it because games are running out, and I just don't see where they're going to lose games.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at that schedule right now. Our producer's putting it on the screen for you. They're at home to Leeds, Liverpool, West Ham, Southampton, City, Chelsea, Newcastle, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, and Wolves. Stevie Nicol, do you see any major issues in this schedule aside from their trip to the Etihad?
Well, I think you look at the fixtures, and there's no question. You look at Liverpool, you look at City, Chelsea. If Newcastle can get back to where they were, because I don't think they're back to where they were yet, then those are kind of ones on paper that stick out. But at the same time, on paper, I'm looking at all those games, and I'm definitely saying that Arsenal are my favourites to win them. I think City's the only one I wouldn't say that, but the rest of them, I'm thinking, well, if you're going to give me $10 to put on anybody in these games, I'm going to put it on Arsenal on every single one, except the City game. So you can look at it on paper however you want. Yes, because of the running, because of the pressure, because it's the Premier League, there is going to be a hiccup somewhere, because there always is. And you can never put your finger on where it could be. But as I said, on paper, looking at the running, other than the Man City game, I've got Arsenal favourites to win every one.
Oggy, what do you think? Because it's away at Newcastle that worries me, I think.
It's easy from this point on to say that they're going to win that game or they'll win that game. I'm just looking back over previous title race, and I remember, I think it was 2012, I think Man United were 8 points clear with 6 games to go, or 6 with 8 games to go, whichever way it was, and they lost it, and they lost a game at Wigan, which you would never have thought they'd lose that game. And I'm looking at that run of fixtures that Arsenal got there, and I'm thinking, Chelsea at home, well, it's not the Chelsea that we know, is it? It's not the old Chelsea, a formidable Chelsea. It's a very flaky Chelsea. Newcastle away, I'm not sure whether Newcastle, they might have picked up a little bit in recent games, but I'm still not sure that Newcastle will get a result against an Arsenal team going for the title. So I think that is a really good running for Arsenal, considering what they've done so far. 10 games to go with only two difficult trips in that. I think they'll win at Newcastle. So, I haven't worked out the maths on me whether 2 defeats against Liverpool and City will actually cost them if City win all the games. But it's very tight. 8 points clear now. That is. If I was City, I'm thinking, when are they going to slip up? They're just not slipping up. They would have expected them to slip up in the last 6 games. They haven't done. So it's really turning the screw on Man City. And let's not forget, City got Champions League to worry about. All Arsenal have to worry about now is Premier League. No distractions. 10 league games to go. We've seen the depth of the squad today. Kieran Tierney came on. Holding came in. They got Smith Rowe on the bench. Jorginho on the bench. With that squad, it's not as weak as people were saying it was. The 10 games to go, I think they're going to cruise it.
Yeah, there's only one team that can stop Arsenal at this point, and that's Arsenal itself. All right, we got another question here from a fan. Stevie and Oggy, please jump in. Stevie, you go first. But here's the question. How surprised are you fellas that the goals are spread around so much at Arsenal? Because earlier we got another question saying, Arsenal need a striker. We should have gone for a striker. But, it's pretty equally divided here, even with Gabriel Jesus' return. Stevie, how surprised are you that, these goals are coming aplenty from anywhere across the pitch?
Well, I don't think it should be a surprise, because if there was one thing we would point at before the kickoff for the season, it would be they don't have an out-and-out goal scorer. We knew Jesus wasn't going to be an Erling Haaland, for example, who's just going to score goals for fun. We know the history of him in the Premier League, that he does more than just score goals. He scores enough, but he's not an out-and-out goal scorer. So they kind of had to spread it around. That's the only way they were going to win the Premier League and win games, is by spreading it around. But the key to that is they have players in the side, aplenty, who are capable of putting the ball in the back of the net. And we've seen it. Martinelli, Jesus, Trossard's come in. He's assisting and scoring goals. Saka's scoring goals. Granit Xhaka scoring goals. Partey with the odd goal. You've got Odegaard. So, when you don't have an Erling Haaland per se right at the tip of your spear, then you have to have ability around that's going to spread the goals around. And Mikel Arteta has put a team together that has that has ability, and that has goals in it from all over the field. And that's why they're getting away with not having a so-called goal-scoring centre forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think, not looking for negatives, but if we try to find reasons why Arsenal won't win the title, I think you have to say that if they lost Xhaka or Odegaard to injuries for any period of time, that would really hurt them. I mean, obviously, they were without Gabriel Jesus for 3 months, but I think Xhaka, every time I see Xhaka, he's obviously he's a star in the making. He's a star already, but I think he's going to be a mega star when he gets to the Champions League next season. But obviously, Odegaard has been really important as well this season. So I don't quite know where they replace those two if they get injured, but they might go through. I mean, Leicester, when they won it in 2016, they didn't really get any injuries. They coasted to the title because they kept the same team pretty much every week. So that is in their favour right now. They're not picking up injuries, injuries to key players on a big scale. So it is all in their favour. The one thing I would say though is that there might become an element of pressure that creeps in, because I think a recognition that maybe if they don't do it this season, then I think Liverpool will be back stronger next season. City will be back stronger next season. I think United will strengthen. So it does feel like this is Arsenal's real chance to win the title this year, because next year it's going to be so much tougher. If that's because it's a World Cup year, I don't know. But there's been something odd about this season, whereby the only team that has maintained any form has been Arsenal. But I think next year, I think we'll see a much tighter title race.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity for Arsenal to take care of business. At least 10 Arsenal players have scored 3 goals this season. I know that 3 goals may not seem enough, but when you spread that around to 10 squad players, that's significant, of course. We got another question here. Augie, I'll go with you first, and Stevie, you jump. Here's the question. What a turnaround for Granit Xhaka. I mean, how has Arteta gotten the best out of him? What did you see specifically today, Augie?
I just think he's grown up a bit, hasn't he? I think he's developed some more maturity in his game, because, how long has he been at Arsenal now? 5 or 6 years. He's consistently been hot-headed, a real issue in midfield that would lose his temper quite a lot. But I think the fact that he's surrounded by players, I think Odegaard is key. Surrounded by better players, he doesn't need to lose his rag so much. I think he can be a calmer player on the pitch, because with Odegaard there, you're controlling the game more. So I think it's easy for Xhaka to, not have to be putting out fires all the time. So I think he's just calmed down. He's grown a bit older. He's realised perhaps that, this is his best chance of having a successful career at a really big club. I think if he leaves Arsenal, where does he go? I think he'll get a decent club, but he won't get a club of the stature of Arsenal. So whether it's the pennies dropped with Xhaka and he's benefited from playing with talented players like Odegaard and Xhaka and Granit Bukayo Saka, maybe that's what it is.
Granit Xhaka would be quite the player, I think. Actually, that would be kind of. Hey, Stevie.
I think we shouldn't forget here, by the way, that I think the main thing that's happened to Xhaka is he's thrived on responsibility. He's got so many young players around him, and I'm going to include Odegaard in that. Odegaard might have been a so-called star for many years, but he's still a young player. And I think, some players crumble with responsibility, and others, it just makes them grow and makes them better. And I don't think anybody would argue that Granit Xhaka is a completely different player to the one that was at Arsenal before Mikel Arteta went there. And I think the major thing is responsibility. We always knew Granit Xhaka was a good football player. On the international stage with Switzerland, he's been fantastic. But with Arsenal, with this extra responsibility and looking after young guys, and obviously playing with better players, then it has just made him better. But I think the responsibility aspect of it is huge.
Ooh, what happened there?
Fan club.
Was that?
Someone else needs me to sign their shirt.
No. That was the Augie fan club.
It's the Bukayo Saka fan club, I'll have to say.
That's a great point, though, from you, Stevie. Obviously, Granit Xhaka, 30 years old, taking responsibility of a squad where the average age is 24.7. More responsibility means that somebody can shine even more. Hey, here's the last question before we transition into the other North London team for a completely different topic. But let's focus one more time on this question. Is Bukayo Saka, Stevie, and Augie, you jump, is Bukayo Saka England's most important player?
No. As good as he is and as important as he is, I'm afraid right now, Harry Kane is the most important player for the English international side. Maybe in a couple of years when Kane's sort of thinking more about looking after himself and picking and choosing when he plays internationally, if he keeps playing internationally, then Saka obviously in the future could be the main man. But right now, England's main man is Harry Kane.
Yeah, I have to agree with Steve on that. I think it's always your goal scorers really, but Kane is obviously England's main guy. I think, I think I'd turn the question around a bit and ask whether, if you've got a full strength squad, do you pick Bukayo Saka or Phil Foden? Because not so long ago, Phil Foden was the guy, wasn't he? He was the emerging star, but they both play in a similar position. They're both extremely talented players, but if you had to pick one over the other, who would you pick right now? And I guess right now it'd be Saka because he's playing so well for Arsenal. But I mean, what a dilemma to have if you're Gareth Southgate. You've got Saka and Foden, and they both play in a similar role. But I think going forward, I think Saka and Foden are going to be the future for England. But at the minute, Kane is head and shoulders the main guy in the England team.
Well, that's a great segment and a great segue to go into Harry Kane's Tottenham, because as excited, as happy as Arsenal fans are about their team, Tottenham fans are not that great. Giving away a 3-1 lead as Southampton tied 3-0, and Antonio Conte gave us a beautiful highlight reel in his post-presser, going all the way from, criticizing the players, the squad, the overall direction from Daniel Levy. I mean, it was a tremendous presser, of course. And I guess we are going to focus a little bit here, Oggy, on Conte himself. What did you make of that presser, and do you think it was justified?
Well, I mean, I thought it was amazing, to be honest. I thought you don't really see what it was until you actually see it live. I mean, I saw the words at first, but when I actually saw him, how animated he was in the press conference, it was like, wow, what he'd say straight off is that maybe he's just trying to force a way for the club to sack him so he can get a payoff. But his contract expires in the summer, so it's not like he's got like a 3 or 4 year contract to be paid off. He's got 2 or 3 months, so I'm not quite sure that's the motivation behind it. He's obviously frustrated by it, and I think a lot of what he said is true. I think, Tottenham consistently falls short. That, how many times we've seen Tottenham just fail to cross the line or fail to even get approached the line. So I think he's right in that respect. But then a lot of it's got to be on Conte, because Conte got this team in the Champions League last season. And look what's happened at Arsenal this season with Arteta, the turnaround he's had, Eric Ten Hag at Man United, what he's done with his players. Roberto De Santis at Brighton, who again has come in and transformed his team. So what have they done that Conte hasn't? Why hasn't Conte been able to do that with Arsenal, with his Tottenham players? So yes, a lot of what he said is right, but I don't think he's looking in the mirror very much, because a lot of what he said kind of points back to him, because he's the manager and he should be getting this reaction out of his players. So, very strange reaction, but it was great box office.
It's always a case of where does the majority of the responsibility lie? Does it lie with the coach because he's responsible for the actions of the players, or is it on the players who won't, can't, or aren't able to do a job? And I think this is the timing of Conte saying what he said is absolutely perfect, because he's been thinking this for a while. And there is no way that you can turn around and blame Conte for drawing this game from a position of 3-1 up against the bottom side in the league, a team that look as though absolutely they're going down. You cannot point a finger at Conte. This team was 3-1 up with 13 minutes to go and drew 3-3 against the bottom side in the Premier League. And every single thing he said, in my opinion, is absolutely true about this team. It doesn't have the gumption or the guts or the real desire that teams that win trophies and win leagues has. They don't have it. You can't lose 3-1 to the worst team in the league with 13 minutes to go. With 13 minutes to go, and he clearly has not been able to build a culture there. All the best teams have a culture of winning and doing what it takes to win. And that means if you bunker down when you're 3-1 up, or you see somebody slacking, you get on his back and you make sure he does his job. All of these things are part of a winning culture. And these players that Tottenham have don't have that. And you can bet your bottom dollar that this guy Conte will have been drumming into them all of these things forever and a day. He'll be sick fed up of talking about, responsibility. We're talking about responsibility. Well, you need to take responsibility on the field to get things done. You need to have the desire that you'll kick, spit, punch, do exactly what it takes to win a game, particularly when you're 3-1 ahead. all of these things, all the dirty side of the game is about professionalism and desire. We all want everybody to play like Man City and Arsenal and score lovely goals and play pretty football, but there comes times in games and particularly a winning team where sometimes it doesn't work and you have to do the dirty things. You have to do the hard things. You have to be able to run an extra mile. You have to make a challenge. You have to put your own self at risk. And you have to make sure that the guy next to you, you back him up. Well, Tottenham don't do all these things. And if Conte can't get them to do it,
all right, but
if Conte can't get them to do it, then nobody can get them to do it. And absolutely 100%, it's the players. They need to look at the players they have.
Stevie, let me just interject here. Yeah, Augie, you'll jump in here because everything that you have said is correct. But, and Augie, I'll let you answer this. Stevie, calm down. Let me ask the question. But does Antonio Conte responsibility, especially when you're talking about building? I understand that the players need to take responsibility. I understand there needs to be a fighting spirit. I understand that. Stevie, you got to let me finish.
Sometimes the horse doesn't drink the water.
Stevie, you got to stop interrupting. All right? Listen. This is
right.
You got to stop.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So, Augie, let me ask you, does Conte take some of the responsibility in this? Because part of the culture building in a squad, yes, of course it falls to the players, but surely the man in charge, who, by the way, has a sporting director who's had a very long relationship with from Juventus, who, by the way, has a World Cup winning Christian Romero, Rodrigo Bentancur, etc., does he take some of that responsibility as well?
Well, I'm just looking at the substitutions. He made 2 substitutions on the 86th minute. So were they the right substitutions, the wrong substitutions? He could have left it as it is. I mean, so if he's seen it that he needs to make a substitution with the right one. So he did make a contribution in the last 10 minutes where Tottenham threw it away. So I think you have to kind of question that. But, like I said, I do agree with Steve in the sense that a lot of what he said is true, but I do think that he's trying to kind of deflect the responsibility away from himself a little bit. He is the manager, and we've seen examples this season in the Premier League of other managers doing better with the squad of players that they have than he has. So I think what it boils down to is the players just don't like him. And they're just not listening to him. We hear the Richarlison situation the other day. So sometimes that happens. The players stop listening and they're sick of the approach, or they're sick of the kind of the blame game. And if they're down tools, I'm not saying they're down tools as a whole, but if players are thinking, well, I'm not having this guy. I mean, Steve will know what I mean, because Steve will have played with managers, or he'll have managed players who probably thought the same about him. Back in the.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Conte doesn't have some responsibility. I'm just saying that everything he said, in my opinion, is absolutely spot on. I said earlier, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. And that is exactly true as well. But, yeah, no question Conte takes some responsibility. The coach, at the end of the day, always carries the can. And like Mourinho before him and Pochettino before him, Conte will carry the can by getting the sack. Because I just don't see any way that he's going to be at Tottenham at the start of next season.
I've just got a question.
That's where I was going. We need to wrap up soon, but that's where I was going with a quick answer. So you don't have Stevie. You don't have him next season at Tottenham.
No.
Okay, definitely not. I agree with you. Augie, what do you think?
No, his contract's up in the summer, so I'd be amazed if Tottenham said to him, "Yeah, here's a 3-year contract." But to be fair, that is if they back him on Monday morning, they said, "Right, here's a 3-year contract," then the players will know that he's the boss. I think the players right now are thinking, he's just ranting because he's going to be gone soon. We're not going to listen to him. But if they suddenly find out on Monday morning that the guy that they don't like and the guy that's calling them out is going to be there for the next 3 years, the players have got a choice. It's like, well, he's the boss now, so I better listen. I think at the minute they know he's going, so they're just like, well, whatever, he's going to be gone in the summer.
Yeah, I think you said one really important point, which is somebody like Roberto De Santis, who was relatively unknown in the Premier League, can do so many wonderful things at a club that already had a culture. I think some directors, some owners need to expand their scouting habits when it comes to searching a manager, because there's far more talent out there than just your biggest names. But Stevie Nicol doesn't have Antonio Conte leading Tottenham by next season. Neither does Mark Ogden, neither do I. What do you say, Tottenham fans? Hey, guess what? We got plenty more ESPNFC action regarding El Clásico, FA Cup, and so much more. Mark Ogden, that's Augie, Stevie Nicol, Luis Miguel Echegaray. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and we will see you next time. Till then, bye-bye.